Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Asus Prime A320M-K. Cheap or trash? Find out after this. Okay, so this is the Asus Prime A320M-K. This is a micro ATX form factor motherboard. This is basically the entry board for AM4 processors and APUs. This at the moment on Amazon's costs just over £37, which is getting on for about £47 or $47 even in the US of A. So it is a completely cheap budget end board, but it doesn't have all the frills and things that you expect from these higher end boards, such as addressable RGB, multiple fan headers, all that kind of stuff. This is a basic board for basic systems. So if you're building maybe an office PC or a very low-end gaming PC, or maybe a media center PC with pretty modest hardware, this is going to be pretty much right up your street. And also, the money you save on your motherboard, you can spend on other peripherals such as RAM, storage, all that kind of stuff, or maybe even a slightly faster processor. So let's take it out of the box and see what we actually get for the money. So you get driver DVD, you get a user guide, which, because this is such a limited chipset, there is literally hardly anything in there. That could be almost on a piece of A4 paper. You get an I/O shield, which is silver. You get two SATA cables. You get the motherboard itself. You get an M.2 drive mounting screw and bracket. And that is pretty much it. There's a wiring diagram and some other paperwork, but nothing of any real interest. So this is completely no frills, no value added stuff. This literally is a motherboard, and a pretty low end one at that. But like I said, this is the perfect thing for low end PCs. You can save a ton of money. This effectively is a third of the price of a high end or mid range board. So you can save that money and put it towards other things. So let's look at the board itself. So the board itself, pretty much a stock affair. You've got actually quite a nice PCB in black with some white highlights. So typical for the Asus Prime range, very similar in fact to the X370 board, which I've got on the PC behind me, and also my video editing PC, both of which are Asus boards. I find Asus boards to be super stable, very reliable, and the BIOS updates are pretty much thick and fast these days. So anyway, onto this board. So let's start off with the I/O. So I/O is a pretty standard stock affair. You've got keyboard and mouse ports, which are the PS2 type, which actually, if you're a business user, a PS2 keyboard and mouse is probably the way to go. You haven't got to worry about USB drivers, all that kind of stuff. Just plug it in, forget about it, it's done. You've got a VGA output, which will be handy if you're using some kind of APU on this. You've also got an HDMI output. So if you're maybe using this as a media center, fantastic for outputting via the HDMI port. You've got 4 USB 3.1 Gen 1, 2 USB 2.0. You've got a gigabit LAN, which is the Realtek 8111 chip. And next to that, you've got your Realtek audio. Now there's only 3 ports on there, but it will support 8.1 audio or 8-channel audio or whatever it is, but it will take into account the front I/O ports, so coming from the I/O or the advanced front panel connector down the bottom here. Not the nicest of solutions. It would be better to have the 6 ports on the back, or maybe even a optical output, again if it's for a media center. But like I said, this is a trimmed down no frills board. So for most people, a simple microphone port and a headphone port are going to be more than adequate. So while we're at the bottom, let's look at the other connections we've got for I/O. So we've got the front panel audio connector. Next to that is a COM port, if you still want to use a COM port. Again, if this is going to be used in an office PC, COM ports can actually be useful for older technologies such as hand scanners, printing devices, all that kind of thing, even digital signage. Moving on down, you've got a pair of USB 2.0 ports, a USB 3.0 port. You've got your front panel connector for your hard drive LED, power LED, reset switch, and your power switch. Also is a speaker connector. Next to the front panel connectors, you've got 4 SATA connectors for SATA drives. So that is SATA 3, 6 gigabit per second. You've also got the option for a socket 3 M.2, so that supports the PCI Express version 3x4 connection, and will also support SATA type drives on the same slot. There's a very small heatsink over the I/O bridge there, and moving on around, you've got your 24-pin power connector and only a pair of memory slots. So ideally it would be nice to see 4 slots, especially if RAM prices were dearer. But at the moment, being that RAM prices are so cheap, then populating that with 32 gigs, which is the maximum on this board, with two 16 gig slots, is probably going to be way overkill for this kind of board and setup anyway. So realistically, I would imagine most people are going to put two 8 gigs in there to give you 16 gigs of RAM, which is more than adequate for office tasks or for having an absolute ton of Google Chrome tabs open. So at the top, we've got a CPU fan header. There is another fan header, which is this one here. That's a chassis fan header in the kind of regular place, but that is it for chassis fan headers. That is it, just the two. So again, this is a limited chipset and it's a limited board. So if cooling is your thing, really you probably shouldn't be looking at this board anyway, but for most setups, like I said, office use, for a media center, a couple of fans is going to be absolutely fine. Now moving around to the top, we've got our VRMs. Now, as you can see from the VRMs, there is not a lot going on here. So we've not got a lot of power phases, but again, this is a budget board. You would expect to see a budget CPU in here. Even though it will support a Ryzen 7 2700X, I would say that is a bad choice on this particular board. Realistically, I would say this is going to max out on a Ryzen 5, a Ryzen 7 1700 at a push, but I think that would be the limit of what you would want to put on this type of board. In the top, you've got the power connector, and again, to reflect the kind of pretty unhealthy state of the VRMs, you've only got a 4-pin supplementary power connector, not the usual 8-pin that we're used to, and definitely not an 8+4, which is what we get on some of the newer boards. So all in all, a very basic setup, but everything you need is actually there. This will run a setup very nicely. You don't have the advanced features such as overclocking because of the limitations of the A320 chip. But again, if you're using this in an office environment, or you just want it to be a rock solid 24/7 machine as a media server or something like that, this is going to be a solid and dependable board, but without all the frills. So there you go. There is the Asus Prime A320M-K motherboard, micro ATX form factor. I think as a budget board, this pretty much is the one to go for. And in this end of the market, there isn't a lot of other choice. You can go for the slightly cheaper makes, such as the BioStar, but even things like that generally do tend to come out a little bit more expensive. At least with this board, you've got the Asus brand name and you've got the reliability of Asus, which makes this stand out above the others, in my opinion. Now, I will be putting links in the description below so you can see the latest BIOS updates and also the other details about this board, both from Amazon.com and also from Asus themselves. So let me know, what do you think of this board? I know it's a cheap board, it's a budget board, and this is definitely not for everyone. And it's probably going to be one of those love it or loathe it types of things. For me personally, I love to do things as cost effectively as possible, but without cutting corners, as in reliability and all that kind of stuff. So for me, this is great. But again, I'd love to know what your comments are on this board. Please put them in the section below. But there we go. This is the Asus A320M-K. I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll see you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.